Hi, everybody. I have to have the window in focus in order for it to make noise. Hi and welcome. I'm excited about today. I'm going to play Dear Esther. And Kyla in the chat was just noting that on the Feedback Force podcast, they did an episode where they played Dear Esther sort of as a companion to What Remains of Edith Finch, which is great. I have not heard that episode of the podcast, but I'm doing something very similar here. So let me set this up. I'm going to try to be quick because part of the goal is that I think I can finish Dear Esther today, but I'm not going to be able to do that if I keep getting distracted. So I'm going to try to be quick. Dear Esther, if you don't know it, is a game from 2008, 2009 maybe, originally. It was a source mod that was developed and has been sort of re-released a couple of times. The biggest one was in, I think, 2011, and then this version, the Landmark Edition that I'm playing, was from 2017, so just a few years ago. But the original source mod, when that was developed, that was shown at Indiecade in, I'm going to say 2009. That was shown at Indiecade, where I was also attending, showing a game that I had worked on called Spectre. And met the team behind Dear Esther, the Chinese Room, and Dan Pinchbeck, and hung out with Dan, had drinks with him, sort of hung out at Indiecade. Very cool guy, had a good time, downloaded his game, really meant to play it. Now it's 10 years later. So I'm super excited to finally play this game. Dear Esther made a ton of waves when it came out, and is, I believe, credited as the originator, not the game, but sort of the controversy surrounding the game is the origination of the term walking simulator, which, has had a huge influence on how we think about narrative embedded in especially open world style games. And that has obviously been kind of a fraught sort of a thing, but there are, it has crossed over into a lot of different titles. You see a ton of games that have open world that use this sort of style of narrative, and there are also a lot of games that are sort of direct, what's the word for something that follows after, subsequence, descendants of Dear Esther. One of them, notably, is What Remains of Edith Finch. That is the game that I was planning to play next, because that is also sort of a big game from a couple of years ago that I want to play, that I want to sort of be familiar with. Between yesterday being kind of a mess with conflicting meetings and Cozy going to the barber and that whole nightmare, I didn't stream yesterday. Next week I'm on vacation. I'm meeting my parents down in San Diego. I'm going to have a great time, but I'm not going to be streaming next week. So this is kind of just I got a couple hours today to stream something. I didn't really want to start, especially really narrative heavy game that I was going to have to stop and come back a couple weeks later to. So here we go. Dear Esther. This is a short game. I should be able to do it in a couple of hours. Yes. Oh my god. Spiritual Successor is also a good... Spiritual Successor often suggests from the same company, which Chinese Room, I think, did do... What is the spiritual successor to Dear Esther? It was, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture? Is that right? I'm gonna have to look it up. I don't remember, but I can't remember what Chinese Room has been up to. Yes, okay, Qbert, thank you. That's right. That is what it is. Yes, spiritual successor is usually sort of the same group doing something similar in a similar vein that's not a direct sequel. And so that has obviously happened. Would also love to play Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. This is the thing, is that I'm aware of and familiar with in a general way, and celebrate this whole line, this dynasty of games in the walking simulator sort of Dear Esther family. I have not played the vast majority of the sort of like big names, so maybe we can fix that. Okay. Interesting. That was an interesting thing to happen. All right. Okay, last thing. So this is super relevant for me. This is exactly what play-by-play is about for me, is that it's hard to find time to play games, especially games that like not everybody is talking about. Or games that like aren't what you sort of feel like playing. I'm playing Mass Effect right now. It's easy to sit down and play Mass Effect Legendary because that's like just came out. Everybody's talking about it. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's nostalgic. But I work in an industry and in a position where it's important for me to sort of like be familiar with a lot of games and to have sort of some experience that I can bring and I can share with my students, and that can inform sort of the way that I talk about games. So play-by-play, here's the sort of secret behind play-by-play, is that like it's a structured way to get me to have time and motivation to sort of play games that I really should play. Dear Esther is maybe the best example of that exists, because this has been high on my list for more than for 12 years now, and I've just never actually played it. Here we got 2 hours. Let's play Dear Esther. I think I just clicked the right thing.
Dear Esther, the morning after I was washed ashore, salt in my ears, sand in my mouth, and the waves always at my ankles, I felt as though everything had conspired to this one last shipwreck. I remembered nothing but water, stones in my belly and my shoes, threatening to drag me under to where only the most listless of creatures swim.
Okay, let me... can I... Wait, do I even know how to do this? I'm gonna live right here, sort of in the middle. That should be good. The subtitle should be easier to see. Do you need continuing education as a prof? I mean, the answer to that is yes, in a general sense. It is not something that allowances are made for. This does not count in any sort of official capacity in terms of like... I can't write this down as an accomplishment, but it is sort of necessary to have a continuing education, especially if you're in a field like games that is kind of all about sort of the artistic, the current moment, and its legacy, like its history. So I feel like it's really important. Whoa, holy shit, what is this? That's molecules. That's some chemistry. That is organic chemistry, unless I'm mistaken. I don't know what the hell it means. I don't remember there being triangles in chemistry, but that's That might be because I wasn't very good at chemistry. Okay, this is a scary building. This is a scary building. Here's a newspaper. No, it's a letter. That's like somebody was writing something and playing cards. Okay. No, don't tell me yet. Let's see if the game is gonna tell me how to do chemistry. This is just... I assumed... Oh, yes, that's a paint can. Alright, so there's paint in here. There's paint in there. There's graffiti in the other room. Let's climb this mountain. This is just like a short hike, right? Oh shit. That's... Oh god! No, climb up. I mean, that is incredibly relatable. I feel like I've done literally that when
Donnelly
hiking.
reported the legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side, and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude.
I mean, that's sort of the deal with being a hermit, isn't it? Okay, so... Oh shit, here's a cave. I missed that there's a cave. Can I turn my flashlight on now? What happened to my flashlight? It's very dark in here. Maybe that wasn't the cave. Maybe that's the cave? Oh, there's some kind of a light. Ooh! This is a very, I'm trying to remember if there's a term that I use for this in level design. Because it's not quite a weenie. It's not sort of like a thing that you can see all the time that orients you, but this idea of sort of like having a view from one place into something that you will encounter later on. The example that always comes to my mind is like Portal. Portal. Oh god. Oh, this is so... No! Is that just because I looked too far? Portal has a great bit of previewing or foretelling. What's a foreshadowing? The parts of the game where you go behind the scenes by sort of early on or midway through, showing you through little windows sort of like what it looks like behind the scenes. IKEA does this too. I don't actually, maybe I haven't been to enough IKEAs to be able to say that definitively, but I have been to some IKEAs where...
There was once talk of a wind farm out here,
does a
away
similar
from the
thing.
rage and the intolerance of the masses. The sea, they said, is too rough for the turbines to stand. They clearly never came here to experience the becalming for themselves. Personally, I would have supported it. Turbines would be a fitting contemporary refuge for a hermit. The revolution? and the permanence.
Interesting. The revolution and the permanence. There's a bit... I did a presentation about this when I was in grad school, but there's a bit in the IKEA that I used to go to, sort of right after... You know how, like, you walk a long way through a lot of made-up living rooms, and then you come to the cafeteria, and then you walk a long way through a bunch of made-up, like, bedrooms, and then you get to the warehouse. There was in this IKEA, there's sort of a staircase that you go down at one point that's right smack midway through the whole shopping experience that looks out into the warehouse.
He landed on the south side of the island, followed the path to the bay and climbed the mount. He did not find the caves, and he did not chart the north side. I think this is why his understanding of the island is flawed, incomplete. He stood on the mount and only wondered momentarily how to descend, but then he didn't have my reasons.
Wondered momentarily how to descend. Kyla, it literally didn't occur to me. It literally didn't occur to me that I could keep moving when the narration was happening. Is that because I put subtitles on? Why? That's weird.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff,
Cool.
exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
Interesting. So... Okay, this is great. I mean, the level design in this is fantastic. Like, look at this fork. The right feels like the direct continuation of the path, but there is also a way to go that's directly ahead. It really makes it feel like I could choose either one. And they're not that different.
They were God-fearing people, those
Okay.
shepherds. There was no love in the relationship.
It's still interesting.
Donnelly tells me that they had one Bible that was passed around in strict rotation. It was stolen by a visiting monk in 1776, 2 years before the island was abandoned altogether. In the interim, I wonder, did they assign chapter and verse to the stones and grasses, marking the geography with a superimposed significance that they could actually walk the Bible and inhabit its contradictions?
Can I go up the mountain? I feel like I'm not supposed to. Yeah, I don't think I actually can. But it kind of... like, it does a really good job of creating an illusion of more open space than there really is. I think it's really funneling me down this path. Who is our character? That's a great question.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason, or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
I don't know who we're playing, but they have a relationship to Esther and Paul, and they're here on this island. That's a boat that's like shipwrecked, or at least abandoned. That's a lighthouse that's not lit. So a lot of like feeling of abandonment here. I don't know a lot more than that. I don't like have a really good sense of what's going on. The game has primed me to take special notice of caves,
wide, and the cliff opened out before me, making
this
rough home. I transferred my belongings from
Whoa.
the bothy on the mount and tried to live here instead. It was cold at night, and the sea lapped at the entrance at high tide. To climb the peak, I must first venture even deeper into the veins of the island, where the signals are blocked altogether. Only then will I understand them, when I stand on the summit and they flow into me, uncorrupted.
Interesting. Okay, more chemistry. That looks like a neuron. I don't know what that is. It looks like maybe a microbe, or it doesn't really look like an octopus. Like, it doesn't look like an animal that I'm familiar with. This cave is super cool. I mean, these also look like, you know, horrible eyes in time or something. Okay, so our character is the one who lived in the shack at the beginning and is narrating in kind of an epistolary fashion some of his experiences. Hi, Toby. Welcome. Okay, and that also gave me sort of the maybe implicit goal to reach the summit, which is a good goal, right? Like, that's something that I naturally want to do. I already tried to do it once. This landscape is really pretty. This is, like I said, this is an updated version from 2017. But still, just the foggy, I mean, that light in the distance blinking is pretty great. I stood in the center
of the sun, and the solar radiation cooked my heart from the inside. My teeth will curl and my fingernails fall off into my pockets like loose change. If I could stomach, I'd eat, but all I seem capable of is salt water. Were the livestock still here, I could turn feral and gorge. I'm as emaciated as a body on a slab, opened up for a premature source of death. I've rowed to this island in a heart without a bottom, all the bacteria of my gut rising up to sing to me.
I mean, bleak. A lot of this is real bleak. Standing stones. This is much more directed than I expected it to be. I thought there was going to be some more openness to it. Which maybe is part of the point. Like, this is not really a game about... This isn't a game about exploration in the sense that I think about it today, but it is a game about sort of seeing the landscape. These little level design cliffs. Oh, an explicit loading screen. Okay.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol
Traversal.
21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services. But although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
I can always see it in my rearview mirror. Intriguing. Yes, Kyla, it is more traversal than exploration. That is 100% correct. Which makes sense, like, and that is very relevant to the sort of controversy of it, that it is a game that is really more about participating in the sort of experience that has been set out for you rather than exploring a space or overcoming challenges. Veldin, so far this does not feel old to me, especially. Now, some of that is, like, again, this version, this release is from 2017. So this release itself is not that old and graphically has been updated. But in terms of sort of what it's doing, the level design is really good.
I sat, when I was at the very edge of despair, when I thought I would never unlock the secret of the island, I sat at the edge, and I watched the idiot boy blink through the night. He's mute, and he is retarded, and he has no thought in his metal head but to blink each wave and each minute aside until the morning comes and renders him blind as well as deaf-mute. In many ways, we have much in common.
Wow. Bitter and cruel. Okay, so I'm in here. This is just beautiful. Like, it has funneled me into this dead end, which then forces me to turn around to go back, which puts me direct in line of sight of this thing, which I actually saw coming because I turned around, but typically you wouldn't. Oh, I can zoom in a little bit. Neither did he eat nor drink. Something said neither did he eat nor drink? Yes, Veldin. Veldin says, I would never dare to walk during the talking. I'd be scared to hit another trigger. And maybe that's when I started playing. It was pointed out to me that I was just stopping and waiting every time the audio triggered. I'm deliberately not doing that, or trying not to do it as much now, partially because I'm hoping to get through this game. But I think it is very carefully designed. And I think you can see that careful design in its level layout, in its spatial layout. But I think it is also carefully designed around the timings of those audio triggers. This is not a game where... and also because it is so linear, because it is sort of... pathing you so deliberately. This is not a game where you can wander off somewhere where the designers weren't expecting or intending you to go and trigger something before they anticipate you would trigger it. Cubert, I was thinking the same thing. I'm glad that you articulated it.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Interesting. Hubert just said it just came to me that this is so much like a dark ride. I really was feeling that on that other bluff over there when it sort of like sent us into an area and then turned around. But that's sort of like designing around field of view is very, very related to dark ride design, and makes it feel very much like a dark ride. I agree. I like that a lot. Nice Cream Sunday says, I find it interesting that the sad narrative kind of goes along with the idea that the game so far is more of a traversal story.
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
Rendered opaque by the car of a drunk. Holy shit. I find it interesting that the sad narrative kind of goes along with the idea that the game is so far is more of a traversal story as opposed to making a series of decisive actions or choices. That's kind of how sadness happens in life. Really, really, really well said. That is the kind of harmony between the mechanics, the actions that you take as a player, and the story that is being told. This is not a story about somebody who feels in control of their life, or is taking decisive action. This is a story of somebody who feels like they are being pulled along.
I've begun my ascent on the windless slope of the western side. The setting sun was an inflamed eye squeezing shut against the light shone in by the doctors. My neck is aching through constantly craning my head up to track the light of the aerial. I must look downwards, follow the path under the island to a new beginning.
Follow the path under the island. This is like a barn? These look like horse stalls, maybe? The music is very full. Like it has its own narrative weight.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either.
The white lines in the cliff is a really potent sort of visual symbol and suggestion. Interesting. Just like a lot of chemistry that doesn't have a place yet narratively. Like it's good intrigue. Like I want to understand how to connect that to other things that are going on.
Inventory. A trestle table we spread wallpaper on in our first home. A folding chair. I laughed at you for bringing camping in the lakes. I was uncomfortable later and you laughed then. This diary, the bed with the broken springs. Once asleep you have to remember not to dream. A change of clothes. Donnelly's book, stolen from Edinburgh Library on the way here. I will burn them all on the last morning and make an aerial of my own.
Make an aerial of my own. Toby earlier said that this is more poetic than expected, and I agree with that. It is really poetic. I feel like I should have expected that. Like, I'm not surprised, knowing what I know about the design team. Which isn't a lot specifically, but that almost looks like there's almost like a human figure in this. This one is very difficult to make out like a specific shape. Again, maybe like a microorganism. Electric Claire, this is my first time, embarrassingly, my first time playing Dear Esther. That wind, ooh. That's good sound design. I mean, it feels like I'm in a windy place. That is really cool. That might be the path under the island that I'm going to go see. This game is doing a really great job of foreshadowing sort of where I'm going to go next and where I just came from.
It is clearly not how he began, but I've been unable to discover if the former was a result of his visiting the island or the force that drove him here. For the syphilis, a drunk driver smashing his insides into a pulp as he stumbled these paths, I can only offer my empathy. We're all victims of our age. My disease is the internal combustion engine and the cheap fermentation of yeast.
Oh shit, he's the drunk driver. Is the drunk driver literal? I think the drunk driver is literal. I think he literally caused an accident.
In early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. All around him, small flowers were reaching for the weak sun. The goats had adjusted happily to life without a shepherd and were grazing freely about the valley. Donnelly reports they hurled the body in fear and disgust down the shaft, but I cannot corroborate this story.
Are these barrels? Yeah. They look like treasure chests. I assume that, like, there's just pirate treasure chests laying all over the place. Veldin, okay, so Veldin asks, would this work in real life? You walk around with a receiver and you get dialogue. I have seen some experiments along those lines. I did a thing in Denver, Colorado, a couple of years ago that was similar. There was sort of a combination of that and like a silent disco, where you were with a tour group and actually I think the gimmick...
Flying down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken.
Holy shit.
It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
Wow. Yes, so the thing that I experienced in Denver was a tour group where I don't remember, half of the people were listening to one audio track and the other half were listening to a different audio track. Most of the time it was the same, but occasionally it'd be different. People would split up and do things. It was a lot of like, okay, now go to this next place, right? Like walk down the street and take a left at whatever, Colorado Boulevard. So it certainly didn't achieve the same effect of like mystery, and it didn't have a dark ride feeling at all the way that this does. I think, as Toby says, it would be hard to, oh my god, it'd be hard to capture that exactly in real life, but you can do some interesting things, I think.
Donnelly's addiction is my one true constant. Even though I wake in false dawns and find the landscape changing, flowing in constantly through my tears, I know his reaching is always upon me.
Okay, so there's the story of Donnelly, the story of Jacobson, the story of Esther, and the story of me. And Esther and I are sort of interrelated. And Jacobson and Donnelly, I think, are interrelated. But there are these multiple distinct stories that I'm tracking. Which is super interesting, which is fascinating. Is this where the paint comes from? Like, is this where that glow-in-the-dark paint comes from? From, like, a bioluminescent fungus, maybe? What's red? Is that reflected? I mean, this is gorgeous. This is beautiful. The color. That's really nice. These little mushrooms.
It was as if someone had taken the car and shaken it like a cocktail. The glove compartment had been opened and emptied with the ashtrays and the boot. It made for a crumpled museum, a shattered exhibition.
That's a circuit diagram. So, this is like a neuron, you know, an electrical system, a chemical system, this is a different one than we've seen before, but some kind of a molecule. Yeah, and there's a poetry in the dialogue that's sort of like dwelling on a drunk driving accident and describing. Oh shit, that was so good! Did you all see that? I came from this way. I came from here. And I walked in here, and I saw this. I looked back at it, but I looked back at it, I think, right here, where there was still sort of a divider between. There's a little median. I didn't even notice this little crossroads. I walked down that path all the way around the lake, back here, and then from here is just as natural as can be. You've got, like, these little stalagmites are stalagmites are screening off the path to the left, so it just feels really natural to go this way. I mean, that's so good. That's so good. Unbelievable. Just like classic principles of level design, really well implemented. And the color shift from the like blue into the sort of like a more teal, into this green. That is so cool. Okay, do I fall down here? Oh my god. Underwater. This looks really nice with all of the specular reflection. Cool. That's so cool. Yeah, just shifting color back and forth. Blue to green, blue to green. And the sound design is still, like, it feels damp. It feels like a cave. This is very cool. Okay, I'm gonna not. Oh my god, there's so many scary, like... Oh Jesus, don't fall over. There's like that weird hole over there, and there's this. I don't know if I'm gonna need to fall down there. Whew. Does the text set up in any way? Does the narrator introduce himself or identify who we are, for example? Toby asks. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. I found the narrative introduction to this really disconcerting, really honestly difficult to follow. It set up a couple of themes, including hermits and caves, and disease, and two white lines, like parallel white lines. I haven't really seen the parallel white lines recur, but I'm expecting to see that again. And then since then, we've been getting this, we've sort of been gradually building up these different narrative threads about, I believe, whoever we are had a relationship with someone named Esther, who was killed, I think, in a car accident when we were driving drunk. We are also on this island, which I think is a real island and not just like a metaphor, but I'm not sure, that has a history from the 1700s of this guy named Donnelly.
In my final dream, I sat at peace with Jakobsen and watched the moon over the Sandford Junction. Goats grazed on the hard shoulder, the world gone to weed and redemption. He showed me his fever scars, and I mine, between each shoulder the nascency of flight.
Oh Jesus, should I know more about what fever scars are or look like? This space is so cool. All of this underground stuff reminds me a little bit of Skyrim, which I went back and played a little bit of Skyrim a month or two ago. Except that it is so deliberate in its design, whereas Skyrim was clearly designed around building reusable assets, so that, you know, because it had such a huge scope, right? In order to build out a ton of locations, each of those locations feels a little bit more generic, feels a little bit more sort of like assembled out of blocks, whereas this has a lot of aesthetic similarity, but is so much grander because it is so deliberately designed. It's very cool. I mean, that almost looks like a tree, right? With like a leaf or something? Double white lines is a road marker. Yeah. In the U.S. too. Ooh, God, what is? Are these sharp? Ooh, I have chills. This is like, these are so weird. What an alien sort of like
I will
location.
hold the hand you offered to me. From the summit down to this well, into the dark waters where the small flowers creep for the sun. Headlights are reflected in your retinas, moonlit in the shadow of the crematorium chimney.
I did not think I was going to be able to dive in. Ooh. Can I now get out? Or am I stuck in here forever? Uh-oh. Am I stuck in here forever? There we go. Come on. Look up, look up, look up. That's where you want to go. Okay, great. What is that? It's like two hands with a test tube in between them. Hubert, there has been occasionally some connection between what we're seeing and the narration, but not a lot. And it is, but not none. It is, the suggestion is that, as a character, we are here in some kind of like maybe a self-imposed, exile, that we've sort of like come to this abandoned place, as a punishment or as a hermitage. And that there is a history of this island that is a literal history. People lived here, and we're sort of talking about them and things that they did. But there's not a direct connection between literally where we are at a moment when the narration happens and that narration sort of making us a narrative sense of the space. Behold, Damascus is taken. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is like a... This is the chemistry and the... Whatever this is, the sort of like more organic stuff and all of the circuit diagrams have turned into a murder wall, have turned into some sort of like crazy, paranoid... Damascus is taken. Conspiracy. Away from being a city. And it shall be a ruinous heir. Ruinous heap. Ruinous heap. Oh my god. These are like roots, of course. There is such a variety of environments that sort of flow into one another. It is very, very cool. Toby says, I'd say I was worried about whoever this is, but I kind of feel like everyone in the story is dead by now. Yes, I also get that kind of feeling. I think that... I actually don't know. I don't know. I think that Esther and Jacobin and Donnelly are all dead. AOTS 220 down. I don't know if our character is dead and this is some kind of a purgatory, or this is some kind of... Holy shit, what is this? This is the scene of the accident. Underwater. In a subterranean spring. Yeah, so this is a metaphorical island, right? This is not a real place. This is a character living inside their own head, suffering from depression and guilt and maybe drug abuse. Wow. I mean, it's beautiful though. Holy cow. Acts 2210. Toby, thank you very much. So, Toby found that graffiti referred to a verse in the Bible, quoting, "What shall I do, Lord? I asked. Get up," the Lord said, "and go into Damascus. There you will be told all that you have been assigned to do." So, I mean, clearly that is what that is supposed to mean. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Wow. Yeah, this is the kind of game that assumes that I know a lot more stuff than I know about, like, the Bible or fever scars or, I don't know, stuff like that. It does something where it modulates the walk speed in a way that feels a little awkward. And I can't tell. I think there was one bit where I was walking on sand briefly, and it slowed down for that. That right there, I can't tell if it's because I was walking uphill, it slowed me down, but it felt like it was trying to do something with that wasn't necessarily pacing related. It felt more environmental. Okay, so somebody's camped out here. So what? And that's gorgeous. Like, all of these framed scenes are just beautiful.
I wish I could have known Don.
Making you feel drunk.
We would have had so
Interesting.
much to debate. Did he paint these stones or did I? Who left the pots in the hut by the jetty? Who formed the museum under the sea? Who fell silently to his death into the frozen waters? Who erected this godforsaken aerial in the first place? Did this whole island rise to the surface of my stomach, forcing the gulls to take flight?
He's mentioned a couple times. He's referred to the island as something inside of him. Which I think is meant to be hinting that it is, like, psychologically inside of him. God, the colors are just so good. I'm gonna sample these color palettes,
We shall begin
honestly.
to assemble our own version of the North Shore. We will scrawl in dead languages and electrical diagrams and hide them away for future theologians to muse and mumble over. We will send a letter to Esther Donnelly and demand her answer. We will mix the paint
Esther
with ashes
Donnelly.
and tarmac and the glow from our infections. We will paint a moon over the Sanford Junction and blue lights falling like stars along the hard shoulder.
we will begin to assemble our own version of the North Shore. So, Donnelly is me. Donnelly is an externalized version of me that I can talk about and talk to. And Esther is my wife, who I killed accidentally. And this is a retreat, an imaginary bit of land, island that I've created to retreat to. Is that like some kind of medical equipment, some kind of surgical equipment of some kind? I don't know enough about surgery. I don't know if I know enough about chemistry or surgery, or I don't think I'm really supposed to read the circuit diagrams, but oh, so I can walk this. I can go down here. I don't think I have to. I don't think this is where I'm supposed to go. But there's a little path. The lights are actually lighting a path. And this takes me back to where I was. No? Wait, is this where I'm supposed to go? Okay. This is where I was supposed to go. I thought there was another path the other way, but maybe I missed something over there. I don't think so. I think the game is just doing a really good job of leading me. Was that a defibrillator? It did kind of look like a defibrillator.